The suburban street glowed under a delicate blanket of snow, each house adorned with Christmas lights that twinkled like stars against the December dusk. Our home was no exception, its windows framed with strands of white bulbs, casting a warm, inviting light onto the frosted lawn. Inside the living room was a festive haven. A towering Christmas tree stood in the corner, its branches laden with ornaments, glass baubles, handmade stars from Rachel's childhood, and a silver angel perched at the top. The air carried the sweet aroma of cinnamon and vanilla from the chocolate chip walnut cookies I'd baked, their warmth lingering in the kitchen, where I'd spent hours preparing for my daughter's return. I had poured my heart into making this Christmas perfect. Rachel, now 22 and thriving in her first marketing job, was coming home from the city. I'd cleaned every corner of the house, planned a menu of her favorite dishes, roasted turkey, creamy mashed potatoes, and wrapped gifts with care, each ribbon tied with love. I wanted her to feel cherished, to know how proud I was. But when she walked through the door, her eyes slid past me. She rushed to Mark, my husband, enveloping him in a hug as he laughed heartily. Then she dropped to her knees to shower Max, our golden retriever, with affection, his tail thumping against the hardwood floor. She even had gifts for her cousins visiting for the holidays, silk scarves and sleek gadgets wrapped in glossy paper. But for me, there was nothing. Not a card, not a word, not even a glance. The sting was sharp, a quiet wound that throbbed beneath my forced smile. I told myself she was just caught up in the excitement, but the truth whispered otherwise. I was invisible. That evening, we gathered around the dining table, candlelight flickering on the polished silverware. Rachel's voice bubbled with enthusiasm as she announced, "Dad, I've booked us tickets to Hawaii for New Year's. Just you and me, sun surf, no stress." Her smile was radiant, directed solely at Mark, who grinned back clearly, thrilled. The words pierced me. "What about me?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my effort to stay composed. "Am I not part of this family?" Mark shrugged, his tone casual, almost flippant. "You can look after Max. You love dogs, right?" His dismissal was a blade slicing through years of unspoken sacrifices. Rachel didn't even glance my way, continuing her chatter about beaches and luau's. I felt like a ghost present, but unseen, my existence reduced to a caretaker's role. Inside, a storm brewed hurt anger and a creeping realization that this wasn't new. I had been fading in their eyes for years, my worth measured by meals cooked and chores completed. As I sat there forcing a smile, my heart ached with a familiar pain. I had given up my career, my dreams to build this family. Yet I was an afterthought. The love I poured into every detail, the cookies, the decorations, felt like a plea for recognition, one that went unanswered. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand their attention. But another part, the part that had learned to stay quiet, whispered that I didn't deserve it. I was torn between rage and resignation, wondering when I had become so small in their eyes and in my own. The kitchen was silent, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator, its dim light casting long shadows across the tiled floor. The shattered remains of the cookie plate lay scattered against the wall, crumbs mingling with porcelain shards. I stood frozen, my hands trembling, the echo of the crash still ringing in my ears. The cookies, Rachel's favorites baked with care, were now a wreckage, a mirror of the chaos inside me. Mark's footsteps thudded down the stairs, his face twisted with irritation. "Emily, what the hell are you doing?" he snapped, eyeing the mess. I turned to him, tears streaming down my face. "What am I doing? What are you doing?" "You and Rachel are planning this trip without even considering me. It's like I don't exist." He sighed, as if my pain were an inconvenience. It's just a trip, Emily. You can come if you want, but the tickets are for two. I don't want to come. I lied, my voice sharp. I want to be included to feel like I matter. You do matter, he said, but his patronizing tone betrayed the lie. Clean this up before Rachel sees it. She'll think you're losing it. That was the moment something snapped. I grabbed my coat and keys, the cold night air biting my skin as I stormed to my car. The neighborhood was a blur of festive lights as I drove to my mother's house, my vision clouded by tears. Linda's home was a sanctuary, its modest exterior hiding a warmth that enveloped me the moment she opened the door. The living room smelled of lavender and old books, a worn quilt draped over the couch where we'd shared countless conversations. Emily, what's happened? She asked, her arms pulling me into a hug. I spilled everything. Rachel's indifference, Mark's dismissal, the weight of feeling like a servant in my own home. Linda listened, her eyes steady and kind. When I finished, she took my hands. You've been putting everyone else first for too long. It's time you did something for yourself. But what can I do? I whispered, feeling lost. Take a trip, she said firmly. Go somewhere you've always dreamed of. I'll pay for it. I protested, but she was resolute, transferring $50,000 into my account the next morning from the sale of her old cabin. The number on my banking app felt surreal, a lifeline I hadn't expected. As I drove away from my house, my heart pounded with a mix of fear and liberation. I was terrified of leaving, of breaking the mold I'd lived in for decades, but the anger burning inside me was stronger. Mark's words, "She'll think you're losing it," echoed, fueling my resolve. I wasn't losing it. I was waking up. Linda's offer felt like a gift, not just of money, but of permission to exist again. Yet doubt lingered. Could I really do this? Could I step away from the life I'd built, even if it was suffocating me? Linda's kitchen was a cozy haven, sunlight streaming through lace curtains onto a wooden table scarred from years of family meals. The scent of fresh coffee filled the air as we sat, her hands steady as she handed me a mug. Outside, her garden was a winter tableau, bare branches dusted with snow, a bird feeder swaying gently in the breeze. It was a place of peace, a stark contrast to the turmoil I'd left behind. I can't take this money. Mom, I said, staring at the banking app. It's too much. It's not, she replied, her voice firm but warm. You deserve to live, Emily. Go find yourself again. Her words stirred something deep within me, a longing for the woman I'd been before marriage and motherhood consumed me. I chose the Swiss Alps, a dream I'd harbored since seeing postcards of snow-capped peaks. As a girl, I booked a flight to Zurich and a train to Interlaken, leaving a note for Mark and Rachel. I need time alone. Don't worry, inner world. Sitting with Linda, I felt a flicker of hope, but it was tangled with guilt. Was I abandoning my family? The money felt like a weight, a responsibility to prove I could be more than the role I'd played. Choosing the Alps was an act of defiance, a claim to a dream I'd buried. Yet as I packed my bags, fear whispered, what if I failed? What if I returned to the same life unchanged? Linda's faith in me was a beacon urging me to take the leap. Interlaken was a postcard come to life. Wooden chalets lined cobblestone streets, their flower boxes empty but charming under a light dusting of snow. The town nestled between two lakes, their surfaces reflecting the towering peaks of the Eigermönch and Jungfrau, which loomed like silent guardians against a crisp blue sky. My hotel room was a cozy retreat, its large window framing a view of the mountains that made my heart ache with their beauty. I took a train to Jungfraujoch, the highest railway station in Europe. The journey was the ascent through a fairy tale landscape, Emerald valleys dotted with grazing cows, rocky cliffs jagged against the horizon, and finally, a world of eternal snow. At the top, I stepped onto the observation deck, the wind sharp and exhilarating. The Aletsch Glacier stretched below a frozen river, glinting under the sun, its vastness humbling. One afternoon, while hiking near Lake Thun, I met Anna, a German woman in her 40s, with a warm smile. We shared a bench, the lake's turquoise waters lapping gently nearby, and our conversation flowed easily. When I shared my story, she nodded knowingly. "I left a controlling marriage 2 years ago," she said. "It was terrifying, but it saved me." Her words were a lifeline, proof that I wasn't alone. We spent days exploring together hiking trails lined with wildflowers, sipping hot chocolate in alpine cafes. The mountains, a constant, awe-inspiring backdrop, inner world. In the Alps, I felt a freedom I hadn't known in years. The mountains seemed to whisper that I was enough, that I could be more than a wife or mother. Anna's story mirrored mine, giving me courage, but also stirring questions. Could I rebuild my life as she had? The vastness of the glacier mirrored the possibilities before me, but also the fear of the unknown. I was beginning to see myself again, but the journey felt fragile, like a snowflake that could melt at any moment. Back in my hotel room, the evening light painted the walls golden, the distant peaks silhouetted against a fading sky. I sat on the bed, checking my emails, expecting nothing but travel confirmations. But there it was, an email from an unknown sender, the subject line chilling, about Mark. "I know what your husband is up to. It's not what you think. Be careful." My heart raced, the words searing into my mind. Was Mark cheating, in danger? Or something worse? I read it again, searching for clues, but the anonymity was suffocating. The room, once a sanctuary, felt claustrophobic, the mountains outside now looming rather than comforting. I couldn't stay. The email shattered my peace, replacing it with a gnawing dread. I booked a flight home, my hands shaking as I packed inner world. The email was a jolt, pulling me from the freedom I'd tasted. Fear and anger battled within me. Fear of what Mark might be hiding, anger that even here, thousands of miles away, he could disrupt my peace. I felt betrayed, not just by him, but by the life I'd trusted. Yet a spark of resolve grew. I wouldn't let this break me. I needed answers, and I would face whatever truth awaited. The house was eerily quiet when I returned the Christmas decorations, now a mocking reminder of my pain. Max greeted me with joyful barks, his warmth a small comfort. Mark and Rachel were still in Hawaii, giving me time to search. I went to Mark's study, a room of dark wood and neatly organized files, its order belying the chaos. I suspected a locked drawer in his desk caught my eye. Using a hairpin, a trick from college, I opened it, revealing a stack of documents. Bank statements showed transfers to offshore accounts far beyond Mark's salary. Legal letters and investment reports mentioned a Ponzi scheme, fake returns paid with new investors' money. My blood ran cold. The man I'd loved for over 2 decades was a fraud. Then I found a letter from Linda dated 3 years ago. "Mark, I know what you're doing. Stop, or I'll tell Emily." My mother knew. The betrayal stung, but I needed to understand. I called her, my voice trembling. "Mom, why didn't you tell me? I wanted to protect you." She said, her voice heavy. "I found out years ago, but hoped he'd stop. When I saw how they treated you, I gave you the money to escape." Her words softened my anger, revealing her love. But before we could talk more, the front door opened. Mark and Rachel were back. Mark entered the study, startled Emily. "You're back early. I know everything I said," holding up a bank statement. "The fraud, the lies, were done." He tried to explain, but I was resolute. I wanted a divorce, inner world. The documents were a gut punch, shattering the illusion of my marriage. I felt foolish for trusting Mark, yet empowered by the truth. Linda's secret hurt, but her love anchored me. Confronting Mark, I felt a surge of strength, a refusal to be diminished any longer. I was scared, but determined, ready to reclaim my life. The bookstore. Linda's Pages was my haven. Its walls were lined with shelves, the scent of paper and ink, a constant comfort. Large windows let in sunlight, illuminating cozy reading nooks where customers lingered. Outside the town bustled with life, its streets lined with quaint shops and blooming flower baskets. I had used Linda's money and my divorce settlement to open the store, a dream I'd buried long ago. Running it was challenging, learning inventory systems, managing finances, but it filled me with purpose. I hosted book clubs, read to children, and built a community that valued me. Rachel and I reconciled slowly. She was angry at first, blaming me for the family's collapse, but learning about her father's crimes shifted her perspective. One day she visited the store, her eyes red. "Mom, I'm sorry I was blind. Can you forgive me?" I hugged her tightly. "Of course, honey. Let's build something new." Our relationship grew grounded in mutual respect. Linda ever. My rock beamed with pride at the store's opening. Her presence, a reminder of the strength she'd passed to me. As I stood behind the counter, sunlight streaming through the windows, I reflected on my journey. The pain of feeling invisible had led me here to a life of my own making. I was no longer defined by others' expectations, but by my own choices, my own worth. Inner world. The bookstore was more than a business. It was a symbol of my rebirth. Each day brought challenges, but also joy, a reminder that I was capable. Rachel's apology healed a wound I hadn't realized was so deep, and Linda's pride filled me with gratitude. I felt whole, not because others saw me, but because I saw myself, strong, resilient, and free.